Welcome to Damn Good Movie Memories with your host, Brian Davis. This podcast is the cure for your long commute and super boring workday. Hey there, it's Brian Davis, and for this week's episode, we're going to cover our favorite documentaries. This is a really fun episode because there is such a variety of documentaries out there, and our panel of guests have so many wide ranges of taste that this is going to be really fun. I don't think there's going to be any repeats, but who knows? I know myself, I'm looking down my list, and there's probably a good 20 picks I have, and they do lean somewhat towards music and sports, but there will be other ones on there, and that's what everyone else is for. All right, let's get into it right now. All right, for my first pick, it's the baseball documentary with Ken Burns. Now, some might argue that this isn't a movie per se, but I kept it loose because documentary should be a bunch of things. But this is by far the most comprehensive documentary ever created on baseball. It is just fabulous. It is brilliant. If you're a fan of history, you will love this because it covers all the way from the mid-1800s all the way to the modern day. Ken Burns is a genius when it comes to documentaries. And baseball, I'm a huge baseball fan, so this is like my Bible when it comes to the history of baseball. And part of the reason I love baseball so much, and I'm going to go through, there's some bullet points I have of why baseball is by far the best sport. One, there's no time limit. It's one of the few sports where you can't run out the clock. Every other game, you can run out the clock. You get a lead, run out the clock. With baseball, you have to get all the outs. The team that is losing must at least have their chance to come back, and no other sport really has that. The other thing I love about baseball is it's really the everyman sport because any person at any size can play baseball. You have arguably the best hitter right now, who is Jose Altuve for the Houston Astros, who is 5'6". The rookie of the year this year was Aaron Judge, who plays outfield for the New York Yankees. He's 6'7". You can have that discrepancy and still have an amazing baseball team. That's wonderful. You don't see that in football. You don't see that in basketball. You probably don't see that in hockey either. It's just, that's what I love about baseball. The other thing that's cool about baseball, defense has the ball. What other sport where the defense has the ball? The pitcher is essentially the defender. The hitter is the one that's on offense. It always starts with the defense. I also love that baseball is one-on-one, so you have the batter versus the pitcher, but it's also a team sport. It's unlike any other sport. Baseball, if you're into statistics, you're into numbers, you love it because there are certain stats that no other sport. I mean, do you care how many goals a guy had in soccer or hockey? Probably not. That's not something you really memorize. However, everyone knew what the home run record, the real home run record, well, not the real, but, well, yeah, technically yes, because there's the whole Barry Bonds controversy, but you always knew that 61 was the benchmark to hit home runs from Roger Maris until the steroid era kind of destroyed that legacy. But you knew that the pinnacle of total home runs was 714 by Babe Ruth until Hank Aaron broke it. And then from there, Bonds shattered it. Nobody knows. I personally, I don't even remember what Bonds' total is because it didn't matter because it felt tainted. But you remember that Hank Aaron, I believe, hit 756. But there you go. And then lastly, there's no halftime. There's no breaks in between. There's no marching band. There's none of that shit. So baseball, best sport ever. If you want to find out the true history and the most comprehensive history of baseball, definitely check it out. It gets into the Negro Leagues from, before when black ball players weren't allowed into the Major League Baseball. They get into a really expansive episode just on Jackie Robinson, who is arguably one of the greatest Americans in history. He did more for civil rights than anyone. Not only did he have to he had the whole black community on his back because if he didn't succeed, if he didn't perform well, it would have not allowed other ball players to come in. So he had this enormous pressure, and not only did he succeed, but he became one of the best ball players in the league. It's amazing, and we're checking out. So definitely check out Baseball by Ken Burns. Next up is Anvil, the story of Anvil from 2008. This is one of the best documentaries I've ever seen, music or otherwise. I actually saw this in the theater and just loved it. And the reason the film works so well is because Anvil never really hit it huge like other bands of the era. I was always kind of a fan, kind of a casual fan, but never a mega fan. And to me, it was fascinating to watch how Lips, who's the lead singer and guitar player, and Rob Reiner, who's the amazing drummer, continued to carry on with the band, even though their glory days were long behind them. I mean, they never really had glory days per se. I mean, if you were in the metal scene and you were into metal, you knew about them, but they weren't Metallica, they weren't Slayer, they weren't bands like that. And because of the success of this film, Anvil kind of gained a new following who had never really heard them or checked them out prior to this documentary. And I really hope they continue to record and tour as long as they can physically do it, and they are. And so you got to commend the guys for that. But if you just want to see, even if you're not into the music, you'll still enjoy the documentary because you can't help but like these guys. There's another sports documentary and another baseball documentary, but I just saw this not too long ago. It's actually streaming on Netflix, and it came out in 2014. It's called The Battered Bastards of Baseball. That's a tongue twister. Anyway, this is a documentary about Kurt Russell's father, who was an actor named Bing Russell. He was on Bonanza for many years, and he ended up buying a independent baseball team in the 1970s in, I believe, Oregon. And yeah, they were the Portland Mavericks. And so at the time, and still now, Major League Baseball, they own like all of the sub ball clubs. Way back when, you could have independent leagues that didn't have to work directly with Major League Baseball. It was kind of a cool thing. And so when Portland had a team that was connected to the MLB, it really didn't do well. So Bing loved baseball, and he wanted to kind of thumb his nose at the establishment. So he created his own ragtag league and team, and he would play against other leagues. And these were all cast-offs. These were guys that weren't considered good enough, or were once playing, like Jim Bouton, who was famous for writing his book Ball 4, played for the New York Yankees and the Seattle Pilots, ends up playing for the Portland Mavericks. And it's a really, really fascinating documentary. If you love baseball, and really it in a way it has a sad ending, but it doesn't, because it shows that independent teams could survive. But it's also the when corporations get in the way, and all sports leagues are just major corporations, they kind of ruined it for the little guy. But in any case, this will bring a smile to your face. It's a lot of fun. They have some great footage from in the 70s when the teams were going, and even Kurt Russell played for the team. Kurt Russell used to play minor league ball, so really, really worth checking out if you're into baseball. All right, next is a documentary called All Things Must Pass, and it's based on the history of Tower Records and their founder, Russ Solomon, who's just a total character, and there's plenty of interviews with him in that, and it's actually filmed by Tom Hanks' son, Colin Hanks. But I lived at Tower Records when I was growing up. This was a staple, especially in the Bay Area, and then eventually became nationwide, but it actually started, I believe, in Sacramento, and then, of course, the Sunset Tower Records was a go-to place. I mean, if you wanted new music, every Tuesday you go to Tower Records. That's when the new albums came out. And it's really kind of ironic because they started as an independent store, and eventually they became the major chain that put, the smaller music stores out of business. And then eventually, ironically, then your Best Buys, your Targets, your Walmarts then put Tower Records out of business because it was just too expensive. However, Tower Records still exists online and in Japan. It actually thrives in Japan. But if you really want to see what it was like in the 70s, 80s, and 90s at the height of when people actually used to buy music, definitely check out All Things Must Pass. Next is The Wrecking Crew from 2015. This is awesome. If you love the history of music and you like the behind-the-scenes, stories about really what happened, especially in the 1960s with rock and roll, this is a documentary for you to see because it talks about all of the prolific session musicians who recorded most of the famous music you've heard, and it's not actually from the people you think are actually in the band. And so people like Cher or Brian Wilson and the Monkees and of course the Beach Boys and the Mamas and Papas, a lot of their music was played by these session musicians, and they just never got the credit because that wasn't their deal. Their deal was to be behind the scenes. They were all master musicians of what they did. And it talks about, hey, we played on this, we played on this, we played on this, and a lot of people just didn't know unless you were in the industry. But these were the go-to people for many of the songs that stand the test of time and continue to be popular even today. So if you love music and you love music of the 60s, definitely check out The Wrecking Crew. This next one is another music documentary, and it's called Big Star, Nothing Can Hurt Me, and came out in 2012. And this is about a very what they thought was going to be a huge rock band from Memphis called Big Star, and they just never made it. They actually were always commercial failures. However, they were very inspirational to many different bands, and definitely have a cult following and influenced, bands like REM and like that. And I didn't know much about them, but I always heard that REM always raved about Big Star, and they do have one album that, they have a few albums, but they talk about the one that they thought was going to be amazing. And yes, if you want to hear a band that should have made it from the 60s and just didn't, and some of the amazing interviews and archival footage, definitely check out Big Star, Nothing Can Hurt Me. Next are the trilogy of the Decline of Western Civilization documentaries by Penelope Spears. She would go on to have major success with Wayne's World, but before, she was a documentary filmmaker, and the Decline movies are brilliant. The first one takes place in the early 80s for the Los Angeles punk scene, and you get to see like the early incarnations before Henry Rollins was even in Black Flag. You get to see Fear, I think the Germs. There's just so much great stuff in there. If you really want to see what punk was like before it became sanitized, definitely check out the first Decline of Western Civilization. And then the second one that's near and dear to my heart because it covers the hair metal scene in the mid to late 1980s is part 2, and it's self-parody. It's almost making fun of it, but there's some great stuff on there. You get to see Megadeth and Ozzy, but then you see ridiculous scenes with Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons, and of course Poison. But it's a great snapshot in time. You get to see the bands that they thought they were going to make it and just never took off, but then you get to see bands that you thought that you weren't sure, and they actually did make it. So that's kind of cool to see. And then the third one, if you get the box set, covers the gutter punk era of the kind of the early 90s, early to mid 90s, and really a lot of people didn't see it, and so I'm glad that you get a chance to see it. It deals more with homelessness than anything, also combining these kids' love of punk music and kind of the pack mentality of they kind of take care of each other. It's definitely the most serious of the three, but definitely check out the Decline of Western Civilization documentaries. Next up is a documentary called Not Dead Yet, which is the story of Jason Becker, who was a brilliant guitar player in the late 80s, early 90s, who was probably going to be the next guitar hero. Even signed on with David Lee Roth to record his A Little Ain't Enough album. But then his whole life changed because he contracted, or he developed Lou Gehrig's disease, and because of that, he lost the ability to move his hands, and eventually he ended up being in a wheelchair. And many people, and that's what the title alludes to, they thought he was dead. He's still alive. He's still actually making music with his eyes. His parents created this program where he can kind of create music visually just by moving his eyes, and it's an amazing story. It's a very sad story, but inspirational too, because here we are, we live our daily lives, and we think of how bad we have it, and here's a guy who had it all, and now it doesn't, and it's a really, really well done documentary. So check out Jason Becker, Not Dead Yet. It came out in 2012. Next is Don't Stop Believin', Every Man's Journey from 2012. And so this covers when Steve Augeri had left the band Journey. This is, of course, after Steve Perry. And they go try to find another singer. And who they found was Arnel Pineda, who was singing in the Philippines, in Manila, in nightclubs, singing Journey songs. And here's a guy who speaks kind of broken English and everything, but when he sings the Journey songs, he sounds exactly like Steve Perry. It's amazing. And so this documentary covers his start and tryouts with the band Journey, and then all the way up to where he was actually performing in amphitheaters and arenas across the U.S. It's a really great documentary, and covers how difficult it is, because here he is leaving his homeland to become part of this very well-known band, and it leaves everything behind. And really, really well done. Definitely worth checking out if you like Journey, but definitely worth checking out if you just like good stories. All right, next up is the Paradise Lost trilogy of documentaries. The first one's called The Child Murders at Robin Hood Hills, and then there's the second one, which is called Revelations, and then the third one, which is Purgatory. And so actually these are the kind of the original documentaries I saw when I first signed up for Netflix way back in, I don't know, I want to say like 2002, but the impetus behind these documentaries was to bring out the story of the so-called West Memphis Three. If you haven't heard about this case, it involved three teenage boys who were wrongly convicted of murdering three other boys in the early 1990s. And so, what basically happened is these three teens were profiled due to their musical tastes, and they were all into heavy metal and Marilyn Manson and things like that. And so their past troubles with vandalism and shoplifting kind of got them into trouble because they were immediately like scapegoats. And so over 15 years after their initial conviction, new forensic evidence was brought forward, which eventually exonerated the three, and they were released from prison. So all of this is documented over these 15 years, over these three HBO documentaries, and they're really well done, and really pisses you off about the legal system. And not only that, but you can kind of see one of the parents there. You might, I don't know, I always thought it was that guy, but who knows? You kind of waver back and forth because there's so much information going on. But you can kind of tell that it probably wasn't the guys, and eventually they were exonerated, but they lost 15 years of their childhood. I mean, they lost all of growing up. They grew up in prison. So if you want to see this documentary, then definitely check out the three Paradise Lost documentaries. These next two I'm gonna combine because they're kind of TV documentaries, but they're made by filmmakers. They go like films, and it's any of the 30 for 30 ESPN documentaries. They're so good. There's so many of them, and if you ever get a chance to watch any of them, they're always really, really well done. So definitely check out any 30 for 30 you can. Also, the other TV one, and Melee and I kind of allude to it a little bit. It's The Jinx, which is the life and deaths of Robert Durst, who is this crazy guy who keeps getting away with murder. I mean, he's a billionaire, and he lives like a recluse, but he keeps killing people, well, allegedly, and he keeps getting away with it. I don't know how he does, but he does, and the documentary covers that. But I won't give it away for you, but because of the documentary, like, life-altering things happen around these cases. So if you want to see just a fascinating documentary, and I know Lindley's the one that told me about it, and she adores this. This is really, really well done. So if you know anything about Robert Durst, definitely check out this documentary. Next is Some Kind of Monster from 2004, and this is, of course, the famous documentary with Metallica. So I remember seeing this in the theater and loving it, even though I hated Saint Anger. It's one of the worst albums ever, but you kind of get to see why it probably was one of the worst albums after seeing this documentary. But the film is fascinating, and it's really interesting to see how the band kind of crumbled apart after the Load albums. And of course, what most people remember is the famous scene with original member and Megadeth founder Dave Mustaine, which caused all sorts of additional drama between the two bands. And however, I was always more interested in the search for a new bass player because Jason Newsted left the band. And so even if you hate Saint Anger, this is still a terrific documentary to watch, and it's totally warts and all, and you kind of get a newfound appreciation for the band. But yeah, even now, like, I try to go back and listen to Saint Anger. I just can't. The next few I'm going to go over quickly because actually Enrica talks about a few of them, so I don't want to take away from her, but they were on my original list. One is Going Clear, which is about Scientology. Yeah, you can imagine what's going on with that. But if you want to hear about what yeah, I'm not going to get into it. But if you want to see, you want to find out about Scientology, definitely check out Going Clear. The other one is Beatles 8 Days a Week. This is about their touring years from the the early 60s all the way up, I believe, till 1966, and to their final show, which was Let It Be. Definitely, it's so good. Ron Howard does a great job with this. Some other ones, hated the Gigi Allen story. If you don't know about Gigi Allen, well, maybe that's a good thing, but this guy was the craziest punk rock music, if you want to call him a musician, ever around. This guy was absolutely insane, and I'll never forget, God, I think I was in college, and my buddy Austin had found this CD because he worked at the Warehouse, which was a music store, and he bought this CD, and it was, I don't even remember the title of it, but it just had the funniest songs ever. Like, one song was called Dog Shit, and all he was yell was dog shit the whole song. And we were just cracking up, like, listening to this over and over again, and it was the stupidest music ever, but the funniest music ever. And then we started to find out more about this guy, and he was insane. He ends up, well, I'm not going to give it away, but if you look up Gigi Allen, you can see his crazy life. And a few other ones completely off off the topic, or compared to G.G. Allen, March of the Penguins, narrated by Morgan Freeman. Definitely worth checking out if you like nature and penguins. And then lastly, I debate about putting this on, but it's actually one of the most well-known documentaries, and it's called Pumping Iron. And you get to see a very young Arnold Schwarzenegger when he was into bodybuilding, way before he became an actor, way before he became the Governor. He was a bodybuilder. Yes, only in America, folks. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this initial list of our favorite documentaries. Let's hear what everyone else has to say on this week's episode. All right, we're back with Sarah.
Hello.
And we're going to do one of your favorite subjects, because when we talk, a lot of it's like, have you seen this documentary?
Right.
And,
because I like documentaries because I feel like I'm getting smarter when I watch them. And, well, I think, I like movies that are based on true events or whatever. And because something about it, I mean, I guess now that I'm older, I can appreciate knowledge more than I did when I was younger. But it's funny, like some of the, it just kind of, I don't know, just it captures my attention. Like I won't watch funny movies and all that. Anyway,
right.
So let's see. I'm going to go back to like maybe one of the, which seemed like the most, like it seemed like documentaries. I mean, aside from a certain group of intellectuals, you didn't hear about it until Super Size Me came out.
Yeah,
and then it was like white trash people and to like the upper elite were like, oh my god, well, because there's something that connects them. It's called French fries.
Right.
So, I just remember that just blowing the industry apart. And like my dad being a vegan and had been for 40 years or whatever, it's like I had already been hearing the preaching of the, all the different, but it was like very interesting to watch that whole thing. And mostly because I'm a big advertising kind of buff.
Sure.
Like I'm really fascinated by, subliminal and how they market people and stuff.
Well, did you read Fast Food Nation?
No.
Because that's basically, and it's a lot of it
is
what turned
right?
into, and so definitely check that out.
But it shows how easily, you target, and they target kids and where they're like cartoonish and they're just, and I mean, and toys, now, it's been several years since that movie came out, but even so, it's like, we realize all of the food pyramid bullshit and the, dairy, I mean, things that, like I said, my dad had been like, oh, conspiracy theory underground for years. It's like, really, who made that whole, it's all a bunch of like, basically patting people's pockets and it's like, let's come up with this thing. And because we sound official as fuck, then people are going to believe us. It's like, oh yeah, that pyramid. Yeah. You need to follow that. Cause that's what it's, cause somebody who was somebody with FDA or whatever behind his name, he wrote that. So that means business, right? Right. It's funny. There was this like, motivational speaker or something that was talking about people and their diets. And it was more like a therapist person. Like, sometimes for some people, they obsess so much about what they're putting in their bodies that the mental strain and thought process is probably doing you more damage with the mind over matter idea than the thing that you're actually eating. Right. And he was like, it's amazing that you people find anything to eat at all. Yeah. Because it's, can't have gluten, can't have carbs, can't have this, can't have that, And it's like, everybody's life gets so structured around. I mean, traditionally it was like, women that would focus a lot on that, but even now, like men too. And it's kind of like, if we just like stopped obsessing as much and just being like, hey, how about I just eat this? Because it could be like the depression and you could be eating like ketchup in hot water, like our grandparents and great-grandparents. But well,
now it's just like everything is, like you said, marketed. So everything's gluten-free now. Oh my God, unless you have celiac disease, there's no need to be gluten-free.
And how many people, I don't eat gluten. It's like, do you know what gluten is? Right. Could you tell me? No, they can't tell you. No. They have no idea.
But everyone tells them gluten's bad.
Right. So,
But for Fast Food Nation, I mean, or Super Size Me, it's interesting because people, after seeing the movie, stopped eating McDonald's.
But
they're still eat Burger King.
They're stupid.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, but McDonald's stopped doing the supersize thing.
They did.
Right. But it's like, but people can still go to 7-Eleven and get a giant big gulp.
Yeah.
Like, I just remember seeing one of those and I'm all, holy shit. Who needs that much?
Or the great scene with that guy Jared who ended up being arrested.
Oh my God, that freaky dude. Yeah, that's.
He was in the movie because he was doing the Subway thing,
right?
And the woman's like, "We just can't afford Subway. We can't afford eating Subway. Like, you don't have to eat Subway to lose weight."
My God, did she really say that? Sounds like the dumbest shit I've ever heard. God, hillbillies are funny, but that was like, and his wife probably was cringing the whole time because she's like this chef and whatever.
She's a vegan chef,
right? Didn't he have some some serious damage?
We kept going to the doctor, and so his body was shutting down. He's like, "You can't do this. You're going to kill yourself."
Right.
Because nobody's meant to eat McDonald's.
What did he gain? Like 30 pounds or 60?
And his cholesterol and his blood
pressure
went up. And
he said he totally had no sex drive. And finally I saw him, he threw up right afterwards. He couldn't.
The first one he did because his body wasn't used to it.
Yeah, exactly. He was like, oh my God.
But you're not supposed to eat McDonald's every single day as all your meals.
Good. That's scary. Yeah. But their fries are kind of magical.
They're amazing.
I don't know of course they've got to be like bad, but it's like
in moderation.
Yeah, because they cure hangovers. Yeah. Like, hello. Anything, whatever they figured out that cures hangovers, they only put it in those fries.
That's right.
So they've kind of cornered the market on hangovers.
Yeah. Salt. Yeah,
is it?
Sodium.
All right. I guess.
Why do you think I love Cheez-Its?
Yeah, but
the secrets are coming out now.
See, but I like anyway. Now I'm gonna start talking fries.
Yeah.
Okay. So that one, and then there was another one that I just recently I watched because I'm a big music person.
Yes.
So probably one of the most moving documentaries I saw was Alive Inside. Did I ever tell you about that one?
No.
Oh, it's awesome. It's so this guy who had retired, I think it's been in the East Coast, he was volunteering at convalescent hospitals in his area and where the patients were like in the deep throes of dementia and Alzheimer's, like not verbal. There's a scene where this one woman is trying to talk to her dad and he doesn't even know who she is and he doesn't look up and he doesn't acknowledge her. So he would talk to some of the few that had family that would visit him. He'd talk to their family, try to get to know about the patient or talk to the people that worked there. And just after kind of getting an idea who they might have been or who they were or where they are, he would make these little iPod playlists and put these headphones on them in the halls as they would sit there. And the response was like crazy. His friend came to videotape it for the day and ended up doing it for 3 years. And they made this documentary. And part of this guy's point was, they spend millions of dollars on medication that at best maybe sedates them, keeps them, but it doesn't bring out any memory. It doesn't make them more, awake, and it affects their liver. A lot of times it can make them more agitated than anything.
Probably gives them worse health issues.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's millions of dollars and it shows nothing. Right. And yet it's $40 for this little iPod.
Yeah.
And they're interviewing this guy who's a head of some big pharmaceutical company. And he said, for 19 years, I've been trying to do studies and find something that produces the same effect as what, Mr. whatever had produced. He's like, and we haven't found it. We're still trying, but it's like, guess what, bitch? Why don't you leave well enough alone? And so he went around to during this documentary, he had went to different convalescent hospitals and tried to basically get them on board on their own. But he's like, yeah, because it's not based through insurance or whatever. Yeah. It was a weird kind of thing. But what's fascinating is they show these people who are like catatonic, and then they put these headphones on and they this one man, his name is Henry, and he his eyes get all big and he kind of starts singing along to this music, right? So, and his daughter's kind of like, wow, he'd been in this home for 10 years.
Yeah.
So they take off the headphones and they actually have some neuroscientists that are on at the during the documentary, and they were saying music activates more parts of your brain than any other stimuli that they have, just all the way back to your cerebellum, which is the last place to be affected by Alzheimer's and dementia.
Okay.
So when the music is introduced back in, it fires up all these places that when they were, from the time that they were born, the way music was introduced, from the way it's stored in their memory, their muscle memory, all that kind of stuff. So it kicks them back into who they were, that certain, because a lot of these people are sitting in a dark abyss of they don't know who people are. Right. They don't remember who they are. It's that's terrifying. Yeah. So this little guy, Henry's singing, and they take off the headphones and they're after his daughter's yelling his name, he all of a sudden, they're like, hey, Henry. He goes, yeah. And they go, hey, could we ask? Okay. And he's
snaps them back.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the nurse is you probably have to ask yes or no questions. Yeah. And so they do. They're like, oh, do you like the music? He's like, oh, yeah, you have beautiful music. He's totally talking. And so they ask him about, a couple open-ended questions. And the nurse is he's not going to be able to answer. He's like, oh, I'd have to say Cab Calloway was my thing. And he's and he goes on this big thing. And that was one of the points. It was the effects of the music will stay. Right. Not forever, but they keep that person kind of, awake for a while. And they go through different people. This one woman wears these music all the time. Yeah. Because she would all of a sudden be walking with her husband. She was a little bit more lucid, but you hold up a fork and she's it was a different kind of memory thing. And she would be, before she'd look and she's like, oh my God, I know I'm supposed to know who this person is, but I have no idea. And it would just be this terrifying feeling. So she would wear the headphones and she's like, it keeps me right in that same place in point in time where she knows who she is and she can remember what's going on. And they even go to a psychiatric hospital where there's some very aggressive, bipolar and schizophrenic people. And Super interesting.
Yeah.
So, it was just very, I mean, it's true. I don't know what I had for breakfast, but I can sing a 80s song I haven't heard in 20 years if you start playing it. So it's interesting the way, it all kind of gets, right. Works, and the interesting part is about these people, they were showing all these different, elderly people and stuff. It's like music, it evokes like either happiness and maybe melancholy or sadness. But if it's music that you like, you're never like, I'm angry. Yeah. I'm like, you know what I mean? It doesn't, it's like, it always kind of can make it, for me, make or break my moods. But it's so touching to watch these people, especially some of them who have been in these homes for years and years, probably haven't even heard the song in 30, 40. I mean, they're putting on like old stuff and their faces just light up. So excited. It's like,
So what's this called again?
It's called Alive Inside.
Okay. So
that's
awesome.
That's one of the best ones I've seen, and I don't even know how long. You both have some homework.
That's right.
Yes. Look at this. Is probably.
I'm like entranced just listening.
You want to watch it? I have it. It's on Netflix.
But it is crazy about how music like does affect the mind and how it can stimulate everything.
Right, exactly. I know. I didn't even know that. Oliver Stacks wrote this book, a couple of books, but he's in it, and he's this neuroscientist guy, and blah 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 blah.
So why don't they do this more?
Because there's no money to be made.
Okay.
If obviously that's what I'm saying. But I did have a friend who I had watch it. I've had a couple people watch it, and his dad had dementia and lived in a home, and sure enough, he brought music to his dad, and he videotaped it. It was so crazy.
That's good.
Because his dad was like singing, and then his dad was kind of like, God, he thought he was singing. He didn't realize there was a little boombox, and he's like, God, you're a good singer. I remember this song. It was so cute. Yeah. So, I mean, I think the move, maybe the information, I'm sure if more people knew about it, but it's not going to be something like, again, this guy is kind of doing it on his own, and he was going to different, I think people are afraid a little bit. Maybe they don't know what kind of, they're like, oh, it's different.
But then they're relies on the hospitals.
Right. But it's like, again, it's like if I had the choice and it was one of my family, granted, if my parents ever get that way, they asked me if I would shoot them first. But it's like, it's like somebody, if like a call,
this is the Sarah we remember.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. If they came to me and were like, hey, you have an option to either go, I mean, I think maybe with more people doing alternative medicine, different things, where if they say, hey, so you can do the traditional like lithium, blah, 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 or you can do music therapy, which is very popular in kids with autism too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So maybe people would be like, oh, but I think if like people are getting padded from pharmaceutical companies financially, or then
it's not enough money to support it.
It's going to have to be something
that's easier solution,
right?
But
it's going to have to be something maybe
scientific or
maybe with the younger generation of bartenders and millennials will be all about dancing on the bars at the freaking at the convalescent hospital
and bartending. So.
Oh, you should see these little people dance. These little in their chair. It's so fucking awesome.
But this is good. I mean, this is probably why the documentary was made in the first place.
Oh yeah, super good. And I can't believe it. I thought that. I mean, like I wish more. It was at Sundance, I believe.
Surprised. Is it on Netflix?
It is on Netflix. Yep, exactly.
Great.
this is probably the most serious I've ever been in.
Ever. I know.
Look at.
I think
does it make you guys uncomfortable?
Like, I was just like entranced listening to you, like especially
It's my storytelling.
Yeah.
Okay, so and then do I have another one? Well, you know what? This one is pretty good, but it's not as touching. But it's another one. It's Searching for Sugar Man.
Yeah.
And that one was fascinating to me, only because I learned a little more about like. I'd always heard like apartheid, that whole thing, but when you go to apartheid, like South African, it's like I'd never really. Like public school didn't serve me well, so it was. So it's basically like it's like it was like a control. The government controlled everything till a certain amount of time, and it was like so. Anyway, do you have a better way of explaining that?
No,
you're smarter.
No.
So anyway,
Nelson Mandela.
Oh yeah, right. So it was like not as bad as North Korea. But it wasn't California.
Yeah.
Let's just say there was a lot of censorship and they kind of controlled things. And okay, so there was a singer, musician in like the late 60s. Kind of his name was Sexto Rodriguez, but he was gone, So he was kind of like a, poet, kind of Bob Dylan, very like spoken word kind of stuff, right? Performed at coffee shops, what have you. Well, he made a record and they had anticipated, the people, the record studio, whoever, they're, it's going to be great. And it's not. And it goes nowhere. And so fast forward like 1972, nobody's really sure how, but they, a copy of one of his albums made its way to South Africa. I'm assuming a family or somebody was over there, right?
Over there, yeah.
Okay. So then people at a party or something are like, oh, wow, what is that? Oh, it's just blah, blah, blah. It's from the U.S. And it's like, well, they couldn't get it. Obviously, they go, everything was controlled and censored and whatever. Yeah. So it ends up getting basically bootlegged. I mean, for the next 15, 20 years, like by
the big album.
Well, yeah, that album, and then obviously,
Okay.
And it like huge record companies are basically making millions of dollars off this album that is now like the voice of this generation of South Africans who are like all about anti-establishment, like the lyrics and his whole thing,
crazy.
So it was,
he has no idea.
Well, the guy, but the thing is about it is that they could not, like the people who were like, they knew nothing about this, basically he was like the Bob Marley to Jamaica as far as like getting the people like rise up.
Like
exactly.
Yeah.
And, but it was the government was very, like if you would go to a radio station, the record was actually half of the music was crossed out. There was only like 2 or 3 songs maybe they could actually, so the DJ couldn't even listen to it. And at the time, if you were to even inquire outside of South African law, you could be jailed for up to like 3 years or whatever. So it's not like they'd be able, let's find out whatever. They just knew he had died. The stories that the artist had died, because now I mean, he was like, anyway, everybody had his stuff, and so he had died after he had given a show, and at the end of it, in this whole political statement, he pulls a gun out and he shoots himself on stage.
What?
And so that was one of the stories, and then there was another conflicting one that it was the same scenario except for he set himself on fire. So I mean, this was written about in magazines and published, and so nobody. Through all those years, knew really how he died because, again, it was in the U.S.
Like Eddie and the Cruisers.
Yeah.
Well, it's like Robert Johnson, the old blues guy. So supposedly he sold his soul to the devil to learn how to play.
Yeah.
So and then of course the devil came back, and that's why he died. Okay. But really, he died because someone poisoned his drink, and that's what happened. But the legend's better.
It's almost like an old like fairy tale.
Like exactly.
Right, and it's like urban legend thing.
Yeah,
exactly.
Legend, yeah.
So no, but it gets. Am I taking too much time on this one?
No.
Okay, so anyway, now it's 1998. And again, this guy is like, bigger than the Beatles in South Africa.
Yeah.
And apartheid is it's all broken apart and whatever. But this journalist is like, I think he's trying to come up with a story, and he's like, he's working for the equivalent of Rolling Stone, let's say. He goes, I'm going to find out how he died. I think it would be a great story finally. Yeah. And
get to the bottom of it.
Right. So he goes to some of the record companies. Like a lot of the record companies are no longer in existence that were producing the record. And the few that he found, the published, all these people, they're like, well, he was dead, so it's not like we're not, and he's like, so it's not, and not like they sent him any money because he's dead or whatever. So they keep hitting dead ends that way. And so finally they start like just studying the album lyrics and trying to figure out if there's something that gives it away, right? So they start and they put something together. They're all, I met a girl from Dearborn. They're all, that's Detroit. So they find a recording studio that was linked to one of certain record companies or whatever.
Like, try to do
they go to talk to this guy, and he's like, cool. This guy, he's like, I don't know. He didn't sell anything here. And they're like, well, how many records did he sell? He goes, 6. There were 6 records. He goes, there's millions in South Africa. He's like, I don't know. So they're pretty sure. I think that guy, because he was the one that recorded him, I think he actually got a ton of money.
Sure.
So he was like, whatever, I don't care. They're like, where are you going to send it? Where are you sending the money? So on his journey through Detroit, this journalist finds someone who's like, I have a phone number for someone who's his daughter. It's supposed to be this guy's daughter.
What?
So he calls her. And, he doesn't want to be like, hey, how'd your dad kick it? Like, what? How did he do? Did he burn himself up or did he shoot himself?
How did he die?
So he's kind of like, talking to her. He goes, your father in South Africa, he's like bigger than Elvis Presley. She's like, you talking about the right guy here? Like, she's like, I don't think.
So confused.
He goes, yeah, your father, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, were you not aware of like his music? He goes, well, I knew he was musical, but I don't think you have the right guy. She had no idea. Right. No. Well, no. Yeah. Because it's South Africa. Who's going to, and he goes, well, he doesn't want to be like, he's like, well, what do you think your dad would have thought of all this? Whatever. And she's like, well, why don't you ask him? And he's like, excuse me? So he calls it, he's all, what? She goes, yeah. So he literally lives in this ransacked, like, Detroit house. It was his first house. It's now, just condemned practically. Like, they think he's like the town homeless guy.
Yeah.
He does, like, day work here and there, just wandering around the city, people. So she's like, well, he doesn't have a phone, but when he does call, I can give him a number to you. So he's, like, in his hotel room, and he gets this call. And
my God.
And he's like, he calls his publisher back in South Africa, and they're all like, dude, it's a hoax. It's a good hoax, and we're going to go with that. But it's a hoax. So he's like, you need to get him here. You need to tell him we want him to come to South Africa, see if he'll give a little show, and blah, blah, blah. And we're going to see what this is all. It's going to, because it's still, he's like, we're going to write this story.
Test him out. Test him out.
Right. And so I'm not going to let you know any more than
now
that.
Now you got to watch it.
God bless America.
Is it Searching for Sugarman?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I have it. It's on Netflix or it's on my whatever. It's another beauty.
Yeah.
Look at my documentaries. You can tell.
I know you're like I'm just entranced listening. You're such a good storyteller.
You might have your own episode. This might.
I know this. You can.
And I only went through 2 of them, didn't I? No, 3. Did I do 3?
You did 3.
All right.
Did you have any, Tiffany?
Not off the top of my head. No.
Yeah, I figured that
it's still like spinning from.
There was a documentary I got the other day called Life After Porn, but it wasn't,
Oh yeah, that's right.
It's on our Netflix.
It's on Fuckface.
Yeah. Right. We have a separate Netflix, for the most. You should be able to log in too.
Yeah,
we should have it. So
Fuckface,
it's like Sarah, Brian, and Fuckface.
I've seen it. Yeah, I've seen it over here.
Yeah, it's so that we're trying to test out the algorithms of Netflix.
Like the crazy shit.
Because they keep offering you up the same dumb stuff.
Exactly.
And so
we're tried to create multiple accounts to try to generate different stuff. And it doesn't.
Yeah, so we're like, let's see if we can put the wackest shit under Fuckface.
So there's 2 of them.
Yeah, there is.
And they're fascinating because some of them are like, fine, I know what the hell I'm doing. Like, this is a business decision I made. Other them are like just cracked out. And,
right. Yeah. They're just a big old mess.
Yeah.
So I guess it's just choices.
Yeah.
50-50. Either way. But yeah. So Fuckface is our new addition to the.
I love the name.
And the icon is a penguin.
I know.
Yeah, that's the best.
It's perfect.
Yes.
All right. Like that.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Tiffany.
You're welcome.
All right, we're back with Samantha. Welcome back.
Thank you.
So for this week, we're going to do documentaries, and it's not documentaries, as I was going back and forth with Lindley about. So maybe I can discuss that with her. But documentaries. So we're here to help you with your English, folks. So anyway, not to get pretentious, but we're going to talk about Samantha's favorite documentaries. And how many do you have?
Not many actually. I just pulled out 2 for this. I was never a huge documentary fan.
Oh, okay.
I think because they're just so serious, and I just never got into them for some reason. And in the past few years, I've tried to watch more as Netflix and all that, but I just don't find a lot of them interesting.
But you are into true type TV shows
So it's weird because I watch a ton of reality TV.
Okay.
And I love true crime miniseries, but I rarely watch a standalone documentary film.
Interesting.
It's a 2-hour story. I'd rather watch something more drawn out. I have a huge list of TV series that I've watched this year, but that doesn't count for this.
Right.
So.
But getting to traditional documentaries, what are the ones that you actually really liked?
So one that I think is really special, and I think it always comes up on lists of best documentaries, is Grey Gardens. And I mentioned this to you before that we filmed, and you hadn't heard of it before. And it came out in the 70s. I have the details pulled up.
Okay, good.
So it was filmed in 1975 by the Maisels. They were these 2 brothers, I believe, who made a few documentary films. They did Gimme Shelter.
Oh yeah, the Rolling Stones stuff. Yeah,
about Salesman, which I haven't seen.
Okay.
So they somehow found out about these 2 women. And they are related, or were, they're dead now, but they were related to Jacqueline Onassis. And I believe they're her aunt or something like that. They were called Big Edie and Little Edie Beale. Those were their names. Their mom and daughter had the same name.
Okay.
They were Bouviers.
Right.
So they were from East Coast old money. And so they were very wealthy. And then when the husband died, when the Big Edie's husband died, the mom and daughter just lived in their mansion in upstate New York, I believe. And it was just this huge, huge house that was called Grey Gardens. And by the 70s, it was falling apart. So these women who had old money, I think the daughter wanted to be a singer or something in the 40s or 50s. And they were just very, very eccentric women. And they were, I don't know if they were like cast aside or the whole like social side of things, but they were associated with Jackie O.
Okay.
And so, because they were related, but I can't remember the whole like family history.
So is that what initially drew you to this? Because you like Jacqueline Kennedy?
I like all the weird like history kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Like I think I heard about it, and it's kind of a popular documentary in like the fashion world.
Oh, okay.
So, because I'm a big like fashion person, and I this would always come up because these two ladies, they lived in this like disgusting old mansion, but in the movie they're wearing like fur, and they wear these really extravagant like headwear things, like these scarves, and they basically walk around in costume.
Interesting.
They're like a version of costumes throughout the whole movie.
But their house was shambles.
Yeah, like they had animals everywhere, and like and it was just dirty and falling apart. And I think like I was skimming through the Wikipedia article before this, but Jackie O and her sister helped like them keep their house. And so this was filmed, and this movie was filmed and released like right after their house was kind of like restabilized or something, but it still looks disgusting. Like, it says that their house was infested by fleas, cats, raccoons, had no running water. They were in the National Enquirer, New York Magazine. So I think it was just this huge like social ordeal at the time.
So did they ever sell the place, or it's still in the family?
I don't know. I'm really curious, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see.
Okay.
So when Big Edie died in 1977, Little Edie sold the house in 1979.
Okay.
And oh my gosh, I actually did hear about this. These people restored the house, and I've seen pictures of it.
Okay.
So yeah, this documentary is just really cool because these two women are clearly are just very eccentric. I don't want to say there's something like mentally wrong with them.
Okay.
It doesn't seem like that. I think they just grew up in their own little bubble world, and they were living like this, and who knows, there was probably layers of issues.
Sure. And when you never worry about money, you can basically do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Even if it seems crazy to people that are quote unquote normal.
Yeah. And then for some reason, they just let their house go into disrepair, but they still thought they were very unique and special. In the documentary, the younger one would just go around singing, and they were so excited to have these men film them because they thought, oh, finally we have the stardom we've always wanted, and it's just very weird.
So Grey Gardens?
Okay,
that's a good one.
And I think it came into the like conversation again because in 2009 they made an HBO movie about it.
Okay.
With Jessica Lange and Drew Barrymore.
Oh.
And they filmed that, and then also there's a show called Documentary Now.
Oh, okay.
It's with two guys that used to be on SNL. They have this documentary kind of satire show where each episode they satirize or make their own little documentary. And the first episode of that show is based off of Grey Gardens. So the two guys play the two ladies. It's hilarious. I think that show's on Netflix.
That's cool.
If you want to check it out.
Yeah.
But,
awesome. That's a great pick.
So, love this movie. Yeah. I think it's just, you could be analyzed. These two women were just so intriguing and sad, but funny.
It's definitely worth documenting.
Yeah. So that's probably my go-to. It's something I always remembered. And in that same like vein, I mostly just watch like a lot of fashion documentaries. So I won't bore you with that, but there was a really cute one I saw a few years ago. It's very similar to Grey Gardens, actually. I have a theme here. It's called Advanced Style.
Okay.
And it's based off of this website or a blog that this guy started where he documents street style from old ladies in New York City.
Oh, really?
So he would just take their picture and like ask them about themselves. And so he ended up making a documentary about their lives.
Nice.
And it's very interesting to hear about these like, 70, 80-year-old women who still dress very like eccentrically. And then you hear about their lives, and they all kind of met each other during the filming of the documentary.
Oh, nice.
And it's really cute. And
well, it's funny how
something I aspire to.
Fashion always comes full circle. So whatever was outdated ends up becoming in style again. So
and I think they're very a lot of the women in this documentary wear like all sorts of crazy things, and it's, I think, totally inspirational and fun.
Well, that's great. So definitely check those out. What's been great about this episode is everyone's all over the place. So we each have a nice little pockets.
For documentaries, oftentimes you pick things that you're like truly interested
in.
So I'm like, if I'm going to watch a real life movie, I'm going to watch something.
Right. But if you're into fashion or things like that. So like mine were mostly sports and music. So there you go.
Burns.
Absolutely. Gotta have baseball. So thank you, Samantha. All right, welcome back to the podcast, Lindley.
Thank you.
We're going to talk about documentaries, not documentaries that we discussed before we got here.
Documentaries. Oh, maybe I say documentaries, but I mean but I know the correct way is documentaries.
That was like I couldn't care less. A lot of people say I could care less, but it's really I couldn't care less.
I could care less, yeah. Chomping at the bit. Should be champing at the bit. We've been through all these, right?
There's a lot of them. But we'll do a podcast just on poor grammar.
Things we say incorrectly.
Yes.
Documentaries. No, documentaries. Wait.
Because it's not spelled TRY.
Now you have me thinking about it too much.
I know.
I won't be able to say it again.
I'm trying to make you less nervous and Mike shy.
Now you're making me, I'm not Mike shy. I just am concerned about my voice.
You're one of our bigger guests. Like, people request you specifically.
No, he means that literally. I'm the biggest guest he has. He
how am I going to dig myself out of this one? Let's go right into your list. Okay, so you have I think a list of 7 documentaries.
Yeah, a list of 7.
So let's start with what's the first on your list. You're never going to be able to get out of this.
I'm not going to go back to it. First on my list, Grey Gardens.
Actually, that's so funny because I just interviewed Samantha and that was one of her picks.
I could imagine that would be one of Samantha's favorite picks. So it's from the 70s, early 70s, maybe late 70s. Anyway, completely compelling, bizarre look. Did she already talk about it?
She did. No, but I want to get your perspective on it.
Oh, well, it's just, 2 crazy women living together, Big Edie and Little Edie. Yeah. They're mother and daughter. They're, come from this bourgeois, Kennedy, New York.
Yeah, the Bouvier
lifestyle. It comes from Jacqueline's side. Living in this dilapidated, eventually disgusting mansion in the Hamptons, which is like a very
in New York,
ritzy, exclusive beachfront. It's beachfront. Like, she goes out, the daughter goes out swimming every day. Like, they film her, and it's just like it's crazy. You just don't know like what happened, what went wrong, how did they become so dysfunctional, codependent. Like, it's just sad.
Yeah.
But also, and it was a big like cult classic, right? So it definitely watched it. Someone recommended it to me or something, just rented it, and it was just like, oh my god, this is crazy. And then they did the Drew Barrymore starred in it.
That's what Samantha was saying too. Yeah.
The HBO miniseries. Yeah. But what was it? What was the name of the woman? Jessica Lange. Thank you. Yeah. Stars as the mother and Drew Barrymore. The documentary is definitely better than the miniseries, but I mean,
Samantha was saying that the Little and Big Edie both really seem to enjoy having these filmmakers there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if there were definitely parts where it looked like hoarding, but also it was just like disgusting. Yeah. I mean, you just can't imagine what went wrong.
You guys are basically saying the same thing. It's hilarious. So I love it. No, I love this because
you should watch it though. It's really interesting. Yeah.
I guess it's on Amazon Prime. You can rent it by $2.99. So I think I'm going to do that.
Yeah, I think it's also if you have HBO, it's on HBO. Oh no, I don't know if the documentary. Right, if the documentary, I'm not sure, but definitely the miniseries is on HBO. But
I want to see the documentary. I think
it might be on Netflix. Have you checked?
I haven't. But I'm gonna.
Probably Samantha would know. She knows it's on Amazon Prime. But
so that's a great one. That's one of the first repeats we've had. So. That's
really good. Of documentaries?
Well, because Samantha picked that one, you picked that one.
Of course. I thought that would be a common. Grey Gardens would be it's kind of this iconic documentary.
Well, and Samantha and I talked about this. We pretty much watch documentaries based on your interests, and so mine are a lot of sports and music. So I think that makes sense. So
I don't know if I watch mine based on my interest. Maybe. Okay. Do you want me to go to my next one?
Sure.
The one I botched.
We never would know that because it's all edited out.
Fog of War.
Okay.
It's basically them interviewing Robert McNamara, who served in Vietnam. And also, served in World War II, and then was in the Nixon administration during Vietnam. So he's actually
he was an advisor in Vietnam.
Yeah, exactly. What is he? He had a special. He was part of his cabinet.
Okay.
He was the main dude, the main security guy. I'm sorry, I'm embarrassed. I apologize that my dementia is setting in while I speak about this. But anyway, it's a very interesting look at the complexities of war. Like, it's not all black and, because Robert McNamara is seen as this evil, horrible person who
dropped the bomb in Hiroshima.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, he didn't drop the bomb. Well, he talks about it, but he talks about the, like, do you drop a bomb and end a war quickly and save, lives, but also
wiping out
also wiping
city,
out people. I mean, it's just like that it's just very complex. Absolutely. And not this simple look at war is bad or war is good, whatever. It's just not,
it gives you both sides and you can decipher.
Kind of. I mean, it's his side, but it's kind of anti-war, but also not. I don't know, it's just interesting. It's just it gives you the nuance of this very complex, where you would think, me being very, thinking I am very anti-war growing up, but now it's like, well, I don't know. Sometimes it is necessary, Well, of course, World War II, necessary, right?
Yeah. Well, that, and the U.S. waited as long as they could, and then they were attacked. So,
it
wasn't like they were getting in immediately. So, okay, next, what's the next one?
The next one is another war-ish one, but no, One Day in September.
Okay.
So that is the Munich Olympics, the kidnapping of the
68
Israeli athletes. Is it 68 or 72?
Maybe it's 72.
I think it's 72. I think it's 72.
Okay.
Just really, I don't know. Even though you know the outcome, you still feel like you're watching like you don't know what's going to happen, even though you know what happens. They all die. Sorry for the spoiler alert, but you should know that.
And the movie history based on it was great too. So,
but also just the fuck-ups that went on with the German police and like unbelievable what happened there. So that was just crazy that could happen, and that the Olympics continued on. You know what I mean? It was just such a strange point in history.
Yes.
Very, very bizarre. So that's a really good one. Michael Douglas narrates, and I didn't think I liked Michael Douglas or his voice, but he's a good narrator. He's good at it. In documentaries. So that's a really great, I recommend that one.
Okay.
The other one was the one we talked about earlier, is The Jinx.
Absolutely,
and that was also one that I didn't know anything. I just started watching it one morning, like everyone was out of the house, and I'm like, well, I'm just going to sit down and watch this. I knew nothing about the stories, and I was like, what? what happens next? Like, I didn't know he was, whatever. I won't give that away, but I didn't know anything about it.
Well, this is one of my picks, and I did...
Do you spoiler alert?
I don't, because I think people need to see it. One thing I did mention, though, is that this documentary actually has an outcome of real life, which is pretty cool.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
it's still going. So.
It's still going on.
So just that teaser alone, it's worth checking out to see how
it's worth watching because it's just a crazy
how this guy keeps getting away with all this.
Well, then I'll go into OJ Made in America. Do you count that one?
Absolutely.
Or do you put that one in? Yeah, and you know how that guy released it? It's basically like it's like 8 parts or something, right? But he released it in the theater for one day so it could make it into the Oscars.
Okay, so this is kind of a cheat because it's more true story. It's not a pure documentary, but...
OJ?
Okay, so are we thinking about the one where Cuba Gooding Jr. played him?
No,
okay, you're talking about the actual...
documentary.
Yes,
Sorry, this ESPN. I think it's ESPN.
Yeah, so that one gets into also the LA riots.
It goes into the history of LA. But just connecting it to the Jinx was just this part where if you have enough money, you can
buy your way out of things. Absolutely.
You can literally get away.
Absolutely.
If you have a strong enough defense team, then you can literally get away with murder.
That's right.
So I mean, when I watched The Jinx, I was like, oh my God, this is just like OJ. Like, this is crazy. He just has like a stronger,
defense team.
Team than the prosecution.
Yeah. Well, it happens a lot with celebrities. I mean, you see all these... it happened with the guy from Motley Crue, Vince Neil. He basically was drunk driving, killed another guy in a band, and got probation.
Crazy.
Anyone else, you're going to jail.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
For a long time.
Crazy. Yeah. And the OJ Made in America just is the history of what was going on at that time and the background of LA, of the race riots and
Rodney King,
and
even the Menendez brothers going on at the same time.
I know. So and I watched that every day on TV.
Oh, absolutely.
You know? So it was really interesting also to see what Marcia Clark was going through. Like, I didn't know any of that. And
Christopher Darden and and even Johnny Cochran, too.
Right, yeah.
The Dream Team. So, it's a fascinating time in history. Yes.
Crazy time, and then like the Kardashians are in our still around. That's just
nobody
nuts.
knew about them at the time. I mean,
no,
you would have never guessed.
Kids, but I'm trying to think. I think Chris and Bruce, but it was famous. I thought there was something to. I thought at that time it was known that his wife was sitting on the opposite side, like was sitting with his
audience.
Ex-wife was with Nicole's family versus where Robert was.
Right.
So there was I think that was tabloidy at the time.
For a
Not
long
that
time,
she was famous then or anything.
Kardashian was synonymous with Robert. Now nobody remembers Robert at all. So, it's kind of crazy how things have changed.
Yes.
So what are the other ones on your list?
I only have 2 more. Did I talk about? Okay, yeah. So the other one is on HBO, Bright Lights.
I haven't heard of it.
Carrie Fisher and Debbie Reynolds.
Oh, yes.
It's like this little sweet. It was filmed right before they passed away.
Right. I think they rushed
about their
released
life
it
together.
Too.
I think so. Yeah, they were filming it probably a year before they passed away because it's her in England, and I think that's where part of it's her in England. So yeah, it's just as crazy. I love Debbie Reynolds. I mean, I really love Debbie Reynolds and Carrie Fisher.
Oh yeah,
it's just it's very, very sweet. I really recommend it. Very enjoyable.
And people forget how very popular Debbie Reynolds was. I mean, people actually think that Carrie Fisher's more popular. It's not true. Debbie Reynolds of her time.
Famous. Yeah, Debbie Reynolds definitely wasn't. She had what I've just been watching because they just released it is Will and Grace, and she plays Grace's mother, and she's just fucking hilarious.
And
she's so good.
The movie you recommend, her Mother, she's brilliant.
Oh my gosh, she's great in Mother. And then in Will and Grace, she's very much like the mother who is in Postcards from the Edge, which is what Carrie Fisher. She doesn't star in that. She wanted to, which is just so funny. But she's very much taken as like a Debbie Reynolds.
Is that Shirley MacLaine? It was Shirley MacLaine and
Shirley MacLaine plays Debbie Reynolds, and Meryl Streep is Carrie Fisher,
which is a good movie.
Oh, that's a great movie too. Yeah. That's off the topic.
And Debbie Reynolds is great. And
we should do biographies.
Oh, we definitely will. Yeah.
Did you do them? No, we should do biographies, biographical films.
Yes, that would be a good one. Yeah,
good.
Thank you. See?
Yes,
we're never out of ideas. Okay, what's the last one?
The last one is The Keepers, which is
I think I've heard about this.
Yeah, I think I recommended it to you. I recommended it to everybody. It's on Netflix, so it's kind of like OJ Made in America. It's like 8-part series. The Keepers is in reference to these 2 women who have been researching the murder of their teacher when they were in high school, who was a nun.
Okay.
So it's basically uncovers this crazy web of just
what years did this take place?
So in the mid to late 60s, like that's when they were in high school. Maybe early to. I mean, the abuse went on for many years. They uncover that, and then it's just. And it's it's like basically 2 priests who are the focus of, one of them is definitely dead, and the other one I think dies while they're making The Keepers. He's basically senile. I think they go and talk to him, but they were like basically the headmasters, or I don't know how Catholic schools run, but they were the head priests, and then all the nuns were the teachers, and it was just basically, it basically points that because she was about to speak out on their abuse of the teenage girls that were at the high school, that they murdered her and then got rid of her, to cover up that, because she was about to come forward to the Catholic Church.
Okay. And there was they just kind of live in their own little cloak.
Exactly. They didn't get, they served for years. Yeah, I mean, the abuse is crazy. About for one of them specifically, it's just like what is uncovered. And a lot of it is, I got really super like, oh my God, what is going on here? I even was watching their Facebook page for a while because they had updates, because it's still an unsolved mystery, kind of.
Like a cold case.
So more people are coming forward. And anyway, it's just a compelling thing.
Well, you mentioned money, but power in the Catholic Church or any church is... There's
That's
nothing,
the same,
it's just as bad.
Same thing. Yeah. I mean, that before this all happened before whatever. I think some of them that were abused by these 2 guys then went to trial during the 90s, came forward as anonymous witnesses against one of them. And I think they lost. I think they still lost their case. But it was after that, whatever that Matt Damon movie is.
Yes.
Where not Matt Damon. Who is it?
Mark Ruffalo?
Mark Ruffalo. That movie. I mean, it's about that.
He's on the newspaper. And he's
I think the Boston Globe.
Yes,
and they're
great
covering
movie. Won an Oscar.
Abuse. Abuse by priests in the Catholic Church. So and the cover-ups. I mean, basically the cover-ups.
I mean, it's not just they get away with murder. I mean, they are getting away with murder, but they're also getting away with all this abuse, and all they do is just put them in a different...
Yeah, exactly. Just move them from church, and they do it again and
Don't
again.
solve the problem. So.
Yeah, crazy. Scary. Something, like, just super scary about that.
Well, if you want some uplifting documentaries, folks.
Well, wait, what in here? Oh, none of these are uplifting. Bright Lights.
That's not true. Bright Lights would be a good one.
It's very, but sad because they passed away right when they released it.
It's always a silver lining.
But yes, Bright Lights, I would say, would be very uplifting.
Okay.
It's very sweet.
Well, thank you.
It's almost Grey Garden. It's kind of like a Grey Gardens.
Grey Gardens
not as dysfunctional.
Yeah, I think that's not uplifting.
Grey Gardens is not. It's not.
It's like a train wreck.
Not super dark. Yeah, train wreck. But I would say Carrie Fisher and Debbie Reynolds is similar, or have a similar relationship to in Grey Gardens. They're just not completely nuts. They're just kind of eccentric,
and
where they are eccentric and nuts. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you as always, Lindley.
Of course.
All right, we're back with Enrica.
Hello.
And this week we're going to cover documentaries, and we're going to be all over the place on this one.
Yeah.
I'll be shocked if we repeat anyone on this one, because documentaries are so
vast.
Yes. So this is going to be a lot of fun. So.
I love documentaries.
And you always come up with a good list. So I'm curious what you're going to do this week.
Thanks. I like documentaries, although I don't like the health and food documentaries of today. I think they're ridiculous. And even like the inconvenient, politically motivated documentaries. Like, I think they're often really important points to be made that are just made with way too much like bias and,
of course,
I don't know. I don't like it. It makes me uncomfortable because I can't trust the information as being like actually
Even if you agree with it.
Even if I agree with it. Like, I feel like I need the data. I need to see the data.
Yeah.
I need to see, like, how much you manipulated the information to fit your thesis.
Absolutely.
You know, I don't like that style. But there are a few that I just love. Amy.
Oh, yes. The Amy Winehouse documentary. Really well done.
I love Amy Winehouse. I didn't know a lot about her life and her kind of deep levels until I saw the documentary. I loved her music, but I didn't know like about her and her tortured nature. Yeah. And I watched it on a plane. Oh, jeez. And I was crying so hard. I was like the loser in the center seat on the plane.
You okay?
And then I was inspired to be her for Halloween.
That's right. And if you did, well, obviously you haven't seen Enrica, but if you did get serious, she does amazing jobs on her Halloween costume. So
I'm very honored to hear you.
She pulled it off, and that was not an easy costume to do.
Amy?
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was easy.
Well, the tattoos, you went pretty deep.
The tattoos were so fun. And she is such an artistic, unique looking person.
Yeah.
So it was really easy to kind of... There's just signature things, you know. Subtlety is often harder than obvious, like black, dyed, beehive.
Right. But then you did Amy Winehouse, you did... who was the character?
Arthur.
Yes. And Marty McFly this year.
Marty McFly this year, who I've wanted to be Marty McFly forever.
Yes.
And my big dream is Rufio from Hook.
Nice.
But the artistic direction on Hook was so incredibly detailed, especially the costume design.
It's going to be tough to
get. That 80s, 90s grunge punk look on all the kids. And Rufio with his red, like, skunk mohawk and the teeth on his necklace and the studded belts. And, oh my gosh, it's so... involved, but that's what I want. I want to be Rufio so bad. He's my dream.
How far are you willing to go for your art?
I don't know. If the problem with my costumes is they're usually last minute. Yeah. Like, I have an idea and then I don't have plans, so I don't execute it. And then, like, the weekend before, plans magically show up, and then I'm like, guess I need a costume, and I will still want to be the thing I wanted to be. Right. But I have to, like, throw it together at last minute.
The idea is always more fun than actually the execution. That's always the way. So, but getting back on topic.
Sorry, Amy, changed my life.
That documentary I'm amazed the footage they got.
I know.
I mean, it's all real stuff really that you get throughout her career.
And the people they're able to talk to like, kind of illuminate some of the things that were going on in her life. Yeah.
her addiction issues and her relationships, and she was so young, but she had like such a rich, dangerous, artistic 20s and even her late teens. I don't know. I thought it was amazing. I thought it ended beautifully. Yeah. Kind of those shots of what could have happened. Like, the collaboration she was working on, the music she was making and getting ready to release at that time of her death. Yeah. So it's just like, it could have been, she could have been.
Oh, totally.
You know, that amazing.
But she's kind of one of those tortured artists that she would have been better off just being a musician, not being super
not
famous.
In the public eye. And she was at like a really weird time in 2005 to 2009 where there was like this obsession with the celebrity downfall and like wanting to watch these people burn. I think we've kind of moved away from that, but like the tabloid culture of like who's on drugs, who's self-destructing, and just exploiting their pain and all that kind of horrible stuff. I feel like that's ended now. I mean, we only really do it to like Justin Bieber because he's a jackass.
He kind of deserves it,
But if like people are going through a lot, we try to kind of, as a culture, like lift them up and now, and we don't. If we are tearing them apart on social media, at least the media, general, tries to like say that that's a bad thing. I don't know.
Maybe we finally realize that they've realized that the media that they've probably torn down so many people that let's learn from your mistakes. But,
like the Lindsay Lohan story.
Or the God, what was her name? The actress.
Anna Nicole Smith.
Yes. Oh, she was a teen actress, and she was
even Demi Lovato.
Yeah.
Well, she has talked publicly about a lot of her issues.
Who's the blonde that was on? She was in all those teen movies, and I'm gonna have to edit all this out.
Misha Barton. I don't know.
No, she went on. She went on Twitter rants and all.
Amanda Bynes.
Amanda Bynes, yes.
Yeah.
She was. Yeah.
Her behavior was so erratic that like most people were just concerned.
Yeah.
They were like just worried, and I don't know. But like we're not really like tracking her anymore.
No.
We're trying to watch these people burn, and like I feel like that was part of Amy's issue.
You're right, because then there was the Charlie Sheen phase where it's just like that was almost self-promotion.
I mean, it was. We treat women
differently.
Train wreck women differently than train wreck men for sure. Like, but for fragile young actresses and musicians in the business who are often managed by a room of men all the time, telling them what to do. Your behavior is kind of monitored, and it's a recipe for disaster when you add like now the media is watching you every week, and it's really sad. Poor Amy, love you, girl.
But that's why it's awesome when you see your Taylor Swifts, your Madonnas, the ones that kind of take over their own career and they're in control of.
Yeah, I mean Taylor Swift is insane.
Yeah. She is, but she knows what she's doing.
She does. Yeah. She is calculated. Beep. Like
totally.
She's genius. Appreciate her.
Yes.
Hard Day's Night.
Yeah, of course.
Did people mention it?
Is that really a documentary though?
Not the movie.
Okay.
The Ron Howard documentary.
So it's not called that. So it's called 8 Days a Week.
Oh, right. Yes. 8 Days a Week.
Yeah. Which is amazing because that's going to be on my short list too. So,
I saw another one I saw on a plane, and I kept like tapping on my husband being like, this is so good, you should be watching this. Again, with the footage they got.
Oh, so good.
And some of the interviews, like way back from the early 60s when their accents were still super Liverpool.
But they're so funny. Like, they're like stand-up comedians.
Yeah. And just their attitudes about civil rights and not playing to segregated audiences. That's stuff that I had no idea.
No,
they took such a stance. Young 20-something dudes from Liverpool just like coming in, not giving a crap about like making a political or social statement. Like, I don't know. It really shows like the role. There's not been like that kind of influence in culture.
They changed everything.
They did.
Rock music is basically different because of the Beatles.
All music. Yeah. They changed everything. They were amazing. I also loved how much detail they went into with George Martin and his role, because my brother is a producer and makes music and always idolized George
Martin.
He's the
fifth Beatle, as they say.
So it was like really fun to watch his involvement too. I love it. It was good.
It was really well done, and it's also it's only the touring years. Yeah. So it's all the live stuff.
Yeah, which I like because there's not a lot of information about what was going behind the scenes while they were playing these stadiums, how they couldn't hear each other. Like they were still in tune somehow.
Which is a testament to them because the equipment back then was so not what they used
to
be.
There was no monitors. You could never hear, especially with all this screaming.
Yes.
Oh my god.
Yeah, no, the women in the crowd or the girls in the crowd, you could hear them better than you could hear the Beatles.
I know. They're so loud. So much respect. Yeah. Watching that gave me I had respect for them even more.
But watching the footage of the fans losing their minds, it's
that was hilarious. Fun. And even interviews with like Sigourney Weaver and some of the
and Whoopi Goldberg.
The black women who for the first time they were like allowed to worship like the same idols. Yeah. It's so cool. It was a great way to tell the story.
It was.
I loved it.
Really well done.
So that one, those are two music ones.
That's okay. Music ones
and then there's a food one. Jiro Dreams of Sushi.
I think you told me about this before.
Jiro Dreams of Sushi?
I think so.
Do other people talk about Jiro Dreams of Sushi?
No, but I believe you. It had to be you. If we talked
The reason why I'm laughing is because it was like a really good, detailed, respectful representation of this like extremely successful Japanese sushi chef who has like the best sushi restaurant in Japan.
Right.
Arguably in the world, and like 1 million Michelin stars, like the best sushi chef ever, and his dedication to his craft and how he selects the fish down to the last detail, like really highlights this guy's like craziness, but like also genius.
Sure, there's always a fine line.
Always a fine line, and I love documentaries that explore those personality types. I think it's cool because you don't have to make any conclusions like this guy's crazy, or like this guy's a genius. You can just kind of like highlight that ambiguity. I like it.
Enjoy it for what it is.
The reason why I'm laughing is because I don't know if you watched on Netflix Documentary Now.
I have not.
Oh my god. They make like fake documentaries that are making fun of other documentaries.
Oh, okay, that's fun. So it's like Mystery Science Theater documentaries.
It's Bill, what's his last name? I don't know. Documentary Now. They're SNL guys. Documentary Now. I forget their names. But they're freaking hilarious, and they do all sorts of different stuff. Bill Hader. And Seth Meyers.
Nice.
Fred Armisen. Yeah, it's a bunch of SNL guys. It gets a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes. But it's so on point. And the reason why I was laughing at Jiro Dreams of Sushi, because they create like a mock of that called Juan Likes Rice and Chicken.
Oh, God.
And it's this guy in Colombia who like lives in a hut and just has perfected chicken with rice. And like how he chooses every individual grain and like will only allow the chicken to be served if you can catch it with your bare hands that day. And it's like so hilarious.
It's spot on.
And just the way the cuts are kind of mocked and the music is mocked.
I'm gonna have to check this
down
out.
to the detail.
Yeah.
Documentary Now. The first one's a mockumentary.
No, of course, yeah.
The first one in the series is a mockumentary of, I think, like the Beatles or like those like documentaries about bands.
Sure.
It's like the Blue Jean Committee is the band name.
Okay.
And it's like this band from Chicago that makes it big, like making California branded music. And they were called the Blue Jean Committee, and they had this big hit record called Catalina Breeze. It's just like, and they like what brought the band to destruction.
Always, because every music documentary follows that arc.
Oh yeah, and it's genius how they mimic it. Yeah. It's great. So 10 out of 10.
Definitely check
would recommend.
Okay.
And then lastly, on a more serious note, Going Clear.
Yes, the Scientology one. Really well done.
I am obsessed with Scientology.
Yep.
I'm obsessed with cult style, how these things kind of are attractive to people and how they organically grow and what types of misconduct, happens behind the scenes. And I'm fascinated with Scientology. I want to see it burn. No offense to those of you who may be Scientologists.
That's okay. I don't know how many listeners we have that are Scientologists, but you two just skip ahead of this one. Yeah.
Yes, and I just think it was such a really detailed, illuminating, without necessarily being offensive or inflammatory. Just like, this is what they think, this is the amount of money it costs to go up the ladder.
Yep. And they had plenty of ex-members in there on that documentary.
And it really highlighted the L. Ron Hubbard origin story really well, which I liked because it's a lot of his like psychological behaviors and his elements of like, not trusting mental health.
Yes.
Science. I mean, that just comes from maybe being scarred. He clearly had maybe paranoid schizophrenia or some very serious, issue.
Yeah, definitely.
Psychological issue that was probably confronted with traditional psychology.
Yeah. That
really scarred him. And, he created an entire religion.
I mean, he was a sci-fi writer. He was a sci-fi
writer. He also, is recorded on tape as saying he heard voices and believed that there were, things in the universe trying to kill him. I mean, he was very troubled, I think.
Yeah.
And a great example of how troubled white men with power can destroy millions of lives.
But people bought into this for whatever. He found some sort of niche. I mean, I remember as a kid in the 80s watching TV, and you would see Dianetics commercials.
Yeah, because I think at its core, Dianetics is not terribly inflammatory or problematic. It's just another, like,
religion book. I mean, or whatever,
or like if you think about your challenges, you can eliminate them from your life. Like the very simple, just like self-help kind of stuff.
It's no different than what was the Oprah thing that she was touting?
Yeah.
What was it? The Oath? Not the Oath. I'm Oath.
There's all sorts of like self-help.
The Secret.
Like self-help style. That's what Dianetics, the impression I got from it. Like you can make things better in your own life and without, needing to rely on all these other things. But it became a scam. I mean, especially then David Miscavige took over. And it became way more than just like this scary delusion.
It was a huge business.
It's big, and it's like a little, dictatorship.
Absolutely, and authoritarian. So it's not bad for the celebrities, but everyone that's not a celebrity, they're like the minions. So
I don't think there's any celebrities in the Sea Org, and the Sea Org where you work full time for the church is where there's been all these accusations of abuse,
right?
And you're kept in these chambers.
No contact to anyone that doesn't buy into it.
You're forced to do manual labor. Your children born into this organization are taken from you and raised separately. You're taught from an early age that you do not have ownership over your child. Your child is his or her own individual, and the relationship is irrelevant. The most important thing is Scientology. It's so crazy. I don't know. It gave me a lot of perspective, a unique perspective on religion as a whole, but specifically cults.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, fascinating to me.
So now you should be watching other documentaries based on the Jamestown gang.
I love those cult
the Moonies and
I have I have a problem. I can't stop watching cult documentaries.
Hey, I like true crime too, so they're all kind of.
I like true crime.
Yeah.
I love the Menendez murders. Did you watch the Menendez murders?
I loved it. Great miniseries.
Did you like it?
I really did, because I grew up.
I did not, so I didn't know how to feel.
You didn't like it?
I liked it, but I didn't know how to feel, like, in terms of how they presented the information. I wasn't sure if they were being perfectly accurate to, like, the details of the trial. As far as I remember,
I made sure that during watching it, I didn't go back and find out what happened.
Yeah.
But when I recall, it was pretty factual.
I mean, and it really highlighted how we think differently about abuse now. And, like, sex abuse. And being victimized by something like that. And I really think that if that same case were tried in a different place, different time, separate from OJ, separate from Rodney King.
Yes,
maybe today, not in LA, those poor children would be shown, like, at least a manslaughter.
Absolutely. And the way they portrayed the judge was very interesting, because he was out to get maybe not them, but definitely the lawyer.
The prosecutor. Or the defense lawyer. It was clear that there were so many things that made it really complicated. But more than anything, that those stories of abuse, like, how can you not believe that? How can you not, like, understand the implications of being abused your entire life and how that could turn you violent out of perceived self-defense?
That's right.
like you perceive everything as a threat.
Yeah. So, and then the bombshell at the end regarding his mom, like the dad's mom, the grandmother.
How it starts.
Yep. It always starts from somewhere.
And it spreads like cancer. And these poor boys were the ones who stopped the cycle, right? Like the cycle has to stop somewhere.
And they were punished for it.
And they were imprisoned for life without parole. Yeah. And the saddest part is they were like, it's going to be better than our lives were.
Yeah. And they haven't seen each other since the trial. Like, they're totally separate prisons. So, yeah.
I mean, the fact that they view prison as a safer place for them than their childhood should tell you
everything.
A lot.
Yes.
I don't know. That's
almost a documentary too. Yeah.
It is. I think it can. Well, no, it's a
dramatization. Miniseries. Yeah, it was. Yeah, and there's plenty of Menendez documentaries though.
Yeah, isn't there? There was one that was recent, wasn't it?
Probably.
Menendez.
We're devolving. It's late on Friday.
Menendez. Menendez is losing it.
Thank you, Enrica.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're back with Danielle. Welcome back.
Thank you.
I got to make her laugh. Okay, so for this week's episode, we're going to talk about our favorite documentaries.
Yeah.
And this year this episode, you have 7?
7.
Because you usually go with the top 6.
I know.
But you're going to be different.
Of course.
Okay, always different. At least it's not 7
we
and a half.
We need to change a little bit.
Of course. Okay, so let's start with number 7.
So, I really enjoy watching documentaries. Is that the name?
Documentary? Yeah. Documentaries.
Documentaries. And I don't remember all the names because I watch it pretty much almost every day.
A documentary.
Before sleeping, I just pick one on Netflix or Amazon.
Or Ancient Aliens.
Yes. Hey, those two on my list.
Oh.
So I have these different types that I like to watch. I like to watch like nature or, history or like Alien, of course, right? Like those conspiration theories always
conspiracy theories.
Watch. Yes, conspiracy.
There you go.
Say the word.
Constipated theories.
I will do a podcast that I won't say something with my accent.
No, that would be boring. This is why we have you on.
I like the perfect sentence.
No.
One day.
One day. That's okay.
So I really enjoy. So it was really hard for me, pick some
7,
because which one I'm gonna pick. So I would do a random countdown, but it's not necessarily on that order because I enjoy all of them, and some I don't remember the names.
Okay.
That it stays on my mind, but I don't remember the names.
Okay, so the ones that you don't remember the name, you're not gonna pick.
No,
them.
I won't pick.
Got it. Okay.
So it's about one is about the Bible because as a agnostic, I really enjoy listening.
Well, no, it's still
stuff
interesting.
About the Bible,
yeah, sure.
And the one is about Michelangelo that I forgot completely. So those two is really good, but I forgot the name, so never mind.
Okay.
So number 7 is actually there are 2 combined. It's a combo.
Is this your 7.5?
No,
yeah.
It is. It's from National Geographic, and I really enjoy watching. When I want to fall asleep, I watch that. It's not because it's boring, but because it's
very calming.
Peaceful.
Yeah.
So it is Planet Earth and the Blue Planet.
Okay.
I love it, and I put my kids watch it.
Mm-hmm.
It's super. It shows the whole planet, all the nature, the oceans, the forest, and climate, everything. So, how is the climate? How is Australia? What's the animals? And then they talk about sharks and goes Africa shows. This is an amazing, both of them. It's amazing, documentary.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a lot of info if you who is into biology or I like it. It's not it's not my formation, but I really like those kind of documentaries.
Sure.
Okay.
That's a great one.
Yes.
Number 6.
Did anybody pick it? Those?
No.
Oh, they all pick very serious.
No, mine were mostly music.
Very serious Holocaust style documentaries.
No. People are picking ones that they're probably subjects they're most interested in, and so like I'm very interested in obviously sports and music, so those are a lot of ones I know. So it's that's why this is a great subject. There won't be a lot of repeats.
Okay.
So yeah.
So okay, and so number
6.
What's my number 6? So, this I don't know how to say. You just said you killed my surprise.
Okay.
The one that I'm into it, like I'm not into it, like believing and putting like foil on my head, but I really like
Ancient Aliens.
I just put a foil on my head when I do my highlights.
Yeah. But you're talking to the aliens.
But yes, and how do you say?
Ancient
aliens. It is funny.
Okay.
It is funny documentary.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I don't believe one thing that the guy says, but the way that he says, how he twists everything to be like that, it's very smart. And his face, like, he looks like an alien. So it's super. He gets very excited and he starts like shaking his head and hands. So it is fun. It's something fun to watch.
And what station is that on?
No, I have Netflix and Amazon Prime. I watch. I don't have TV.
So for this, that's true. So for the documentaries, we weren't specifying if it was a movie or TV because documentary could be anything.
Oh yeah, Planet Earth and Blue Planet was in the theaters. Actually, in the movie theater. Yeah, and live. There's something about live. It's not the movie live, but there is one that is live.
Sure.
And they're in the movie theaters. Like those, I don't think so. It's like a TV series, but it like is documentary, and he goes like, different states to talk with different scientists, and then he twists everything that the science says, that thing. Yeah. Like it is entertaining. So sure. I really like it. So I watch all the episodes.
I know.
Okay, so this is my number 6. Good pick.
That was a great pick.
So the number 5, and don't laugh. This was a movie too, actually.
Okay.
But it's a documentary, actually. Is The March of the Penguins.
Oh, that's actually on my short list because Morgan Freeman.
It's so interesting.
Yeah.
First, I didn't watch. I would pass, when I was looking at the menu. I like, that's stupid. It's for kids. And I even thought it was like a cartoon or something.
No.
When I watched it, and I saw how it is and how tough it is, and the dads take care of the eggs, and they get broke, and it's so sad. And how like the moms need to swim because they're starving. Yep. So I enjoy that. I put the kids to watch and they love it. And
Well, what's interesting is penguins are very cute. They're not necessarily nice animals and they're not clean, but they're a lot of fun to watch. And of course, it's narrated by Morgan Freeman, which is great. It's going to be perfect.
His voice is amazing.
Absolutely. Yes. And there was a spoof on it called Farce of the Penguins when they got comedians to basically play the penguins.
God.
So yes,
there's a part.
Of course.
So this was number 5, right?
Correct.
So number 4, I'm like,
I know you have a nice countdown.
It is Amanda Knox.
Oh yeah, the convicted. She was in Italy.
It is, and I watched the movie. Actually, it was not the name. I believe it was a different name. I think so.
But this is the actual documentary.
So this is the actual documentary, and there's interview with her, like interviews with her, and wow, that was. I still like she did or not. Still like doubt, but. Wow, like
is she finally got released to the U.S.?
She did.
Okay, yeah.
And she's. I don't think she's a prisoner anymore. I think she was.
I think she got out, but there was always. I'm trying to refresh my memory on what she killed her
roommate.
Her roommate, that's right. Yeah, and the boyfriend
didn't. We don't know what happened. Actually, she was accused and went to jail for that, but no one knows.
So did the boyfriend go to jail too?
I don't remember. I think so. I
remember it was a huge case.
It was super confusing. Yeah. And they go deep. Like they show the house, they show the everything. And I like it. That one I like it. It's still on Netflix, I believe so.
Okay. Do you remember the actual title? It's just called
Amanda Knox.
It's just called Amanda Knox. Okay.
It is. So that's a good one. I like it.
Yeah.
So
that's a good one. That's number 4.
I know. I'm a good.
Oh, sure. The best.
So the number 3, wait, I need to find. It is Anne Frank Remembered.
Oh, okay.
And it is, I watched the movie, like the
Diary of Anne Frank.
Frank, yes. And this is, this go over, there's interviews with her friends and even the house. And like there is a very short scene that she's
wow.
Like the real
they actually
one.
Have footage.
I think it's a birthday that she, is I think is the only one documentary that has
the actual footage.
Yes. And her friends and telling how she was.
So her friends are still alive.
Some,
okay.
Yes. There's this lady that was in the camp. And she saw for the last time, and she says how thin she was, and like super sad. But the documentary is very well made.
Right.
It's very serious, very well made, and yes, I watched that like last month, and it's very touching, of course,
sure.
And yes, it's great. It's really good.
So number 2.
Number 2, let me find because I counted wrong the first time.
We come to Danielle for organization, don't we?
No, I am sorry. So my number 2 is Blackfish.
I think you told me about this one.
What was, I think it was about animals, right? The movie about animals.
I think it was something about, you kind of stretched it.
You
and Malin stretched the...
of course.
This one, I think it was, we were talking about true story movies, and you went with this.
Yeah, right. Malin will back me up on this one. So
you guys are partners in crime, yes.
So, yes, Blackfish is about Shamu that killed the trainer,
in the San Diego.
And the... what's the name? The C word, like kind of covered and blamed the trainer, but she was dead. How can she defend herself?
Right.
And then there's the whole thing that her co-workers start like speaking up, saying that's not her fault, and then they go back on the Shamu, like what happened with Shamu, and there's like I think it's this in Argentina, I don't know where, South America, that how like abused in a way, I don't know how to say. The way it was, and then they were sent to Canada. I'm not sure, but all the tanks were very small, and they knew that Shamu was aggressive, but they brought to Florida, and then with time that happened, and that's why I don't go to. No, that's not why I don't go to SeaWorld. but
it doesn't help,
It didn't help at all. I don't go to SeaWorld because I saw with my own eyes.
Right, how they treat it.
How they treat it, because I did the behind the scene things, and they lie on your face.
Well, of course, they're not going to tell you what really goes on.
But they lie on your face, they live more in here than in the ocean, all those.
If that was the truth, then
So I went there once because I was like, oh, good for my kid, and then, never again.
Never again.
I went there. So this is my number 2.
Yeah, that's a good one. And I'm dying to know, what is number 1?
So, of course, it is Cosmos with both. I love Carlos Sagan, and I love Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So
like Carl Sagan.
Yeah, we call,
So you call him Carlos.
Carlos, come on, I'm a Brazilian. We say Carlos. That's the name.
But here it's Carl Sagan.
Carlos. Okay. I'll never be able to say that. But okay. I really like it. You have the space-time, I would say, for Neil Grace. And you have the personal voyage. It's something like that, the name for Sagan.
Okay.
And it is, they both talk about the universe. Carlos Sagan, he goes more about the cosmology, like how cosmology is kind of how the universe was created, how evolution, what is evolution, is this true or not, how everything interacts today. And Neil Tyson, I can say that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Is it deGrasse or something?
There you go. So he goes more in the stars, like galaxies.
Sure.
So it's different approach, but it's about astronomy and universe, and I'm super into it.
Well, if you didn't know already, Danielle is a physicist, so she's very much into science.
So it is. I didn't watch all the episodes for Carl's saga. But I watched pretty much all the episodes for New deGrasse. I don't know.
Yeah.
They have hard names to say.
It's okay.
I like it. They explain very well. I mean, because astrophysics, astronomy, and cosmology, they're very specific. So even for me, it's like very hard to understand. And they explain in a so easy way, and they make everything so beautiful that catch at least my attention.
So if someone's not very much into science, because you're very much into this, so this is something you may not know at all, but you know something going in. Can someone that isn't well versed in science enjoy this?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. I don't know. I mean, people say
that
I'm bored.
No. I'm saying if it's too complicated for them, people will tune out. Is it simple enough?
There is some documentaries for new degrees that are very point focused on scientists. If you're not into it, you won't get it. There is a one called Black Matter. So to understand what is black matter, you know, to watch the documentary, you need to have an idea of black matter means.
Sure.
They explain, but then you're going to say, oh, this is BS. Who cares about it? This doesn't exist. But in fact, we know it does. So, that's maybe boring and, people cannot, I'm going to turn it off. But for those two, it's nice because they're in this spaceship almost, and they go, there's a personal voyage. So he goes in things that he thinks is interesting. And the photography is beautiful. He go into galaxies and, explosion of stars and how many billions of years later we see the light.
Right.
And so they explain all that. So I'm going into
No, this is good.
Right? I'm going.
But she's very well, as we said most of the time with all these interviews, you're going to watch something that you're interested in.
Yes.
And this is a perfect example.
It is. So those two are the ones that I remember, but I've been seeing a lot of science, but physics focused documentaries, and they have really good ones.
Yeah.
So those are my
That's your top 7. All right. As always, thank you so much, Danielle.
You're welcome.
All right, we're back with Malin. Welcome back.
Hey, Brian.
So for this week, we're going to get very real, and we're going to talk about our favorite documentaries. And this is going to be all over the place because, again, there's so many different subjects to cover for documentaries that I'm guessing there's going to be very little repeats here. And I'm really looking forward to what Malin has to his list this week. So have at it. This is all you. You can go as long as you want.
Well, actually, I don't think I'm going to go too long, but since you say that you want to keep it real, I'm immediately going to break the rules because I want to throw out Best in Show as maybe Best Mockumentary.
Oh, absolutely.
Which has got to have a place. I think the lines are so well blurred in that film, and if there's any doubt how close to reality that particular mockumentary is, I recently saw a documentary called Chicken People, which is about people raising and showing chickens.
Oh my God.
And I realized that Best in Show is really, really restrained compared to at least that reality. So I'm going to throw that out as a double whammy, an excellent mockumentary, which almost is as crazy as reality, and a documentary that is even crazier than Best in Show. And I think when people see Best in Show, they think that's probably crazier than, real life. Nope, it's not.
It's not.
And I think that's why it hits home is you kind of every once in a while you realize, oh, wow. I've heard people say that. That's
truth is always stranger than fiction, and we definitely have mockumentaries on the list. So I think we're going to end up doing that as a subject one of these days.
Oh, okay, cool. So I'm not the only one to cheat. I kind of a little bit disappointed.
No, I'm happy. I'm happy with that.
Okay, so as I was going through the documentaries that I like, I noticed a couple of themes: crime documentaries. And documentaries that start out with a really, really basic premise,
okay,
and then kind of mine away until you get to a different understanding of what you started with, and that just keeps happening, kind of like Russian dolls keep opening and opening and opening until you get to a point that is so far away from the origin point that I think really is an interesting way to think about how reality is always changing, and the very act of trying to create a documentary that represents one reality is maybe a fool's journey.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
So having said that, I want to start off with one that I think does a really good job. Actually, two crime documentaries that do a really good job of setting up an outwardly appearing truth, and then really just digging and digging and digging away until things just become bizarre and out of control.
Okay.
The first one is Thin Blue Line by Errol Morris.
Okay.
Which does a really good job of doing a forensic examination in film of a crime scene. I think we've talked about this one before, but the basic gist of it was that a man is pulled over. I think it's been a while. A man is pulled over and a cop is killed, and we don't know what happened.
Okay.
But Errol Morris goes and he interviews the person who was imprisoned for the crime, and then goes through and cinematically reenacts the crime in all these different potential ways. The lump sum being that he creates this fairly convincing case for the person who was imprisoned. And interestingly enough, by the time you get to the end of the film, it really casts a huge amount of doubt on the legal system, on the guilt of the person who was convicted. And a year after the film, that person ends up getting, I think, a retrial. But anyway, ends up getting released based on the evidence that was kind of surfaced in this documentary.
And those are some of the best documentaries too, where they actually affect the outcome of real life.
Right, exactly. So it's like a documentary film attempting to capture a reality and then creating its own after the fact. And that, I think, is one of the earliest examples of that. I know on TV, I didn't initially pick this, but like the Jinx.
Yes, exactly.
We don't know how that's going to play out yet, but it has certainly played a really interesting role in the ongoing investigation
Absolutely.
of some of those crimes.
And that was on my list.
Oh, you put the Jinx on your list?
Absolutely.
But that's not a movie. That's a TV series.
Well, it's a documentary. But yes, I know.
I didn't know you were allowed to cheat.
Well, it's my list. I can do whatever I want. But yes, I mean, that one was too good not to mention. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, so another one's kind of along the same veins is The Imposter. Have you seen that? Heard of it?
I've heard of it. I think I have.
The Imposter is such a fun documentary to watch. I think that Thin Blue Line has fairly limited rewatch value, just because the repetition of those reenactments you can get lost in that if you're watching it over and over again. The Imposter is a bit more cinematic. It does mix reenactments with interviews in a way that Errol Morris doesn't quite do. But it starts off with this. The basic premise there is that a kid in Spain calls the authorities on a stormy night and says that he's escaped, that he was kidnapped, and that he wants to be like connected with his family. His family is in the United States, I think in Texas. And so the family hears about their, long lost relative being found and goes out to reclaim him. Mm-hmm. And as I don't want to give too much away, but as you get just a little bit further into the film, it takes a huge left turn. And that's just the first of so many outrageous left turns. It is just incredible.
No, that sounds really good.
It has to be seen to be believed.
Okay.
I went in and saw it at a theater in Berkeley, and I just remember my jaw dropping like every probably 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Everything that you thought was established, you just end up having the rug pulled out from under you again and again and again. It's quite a ride. It's a real fun ride.
So The Imposter.
Yeah,
okay.
The Imposter.
Definitely.
Highly recommend that one too.
Okay, great.
Okay, so, gosh, what else do I want to say? I'm looking at my list, thinking which ones are worth mentioning. Okay, so basically any documentary by Werner Herzog.
Okay.
The most notable right now are probably Grizzly Man, Cave of Forgotten Dreams, and Encounters at the End of the World.
Okay.
Which is about his trip down to Antarctica to visit scientists who are working in the labs there. Anyway, so he's just fascinating. I could listen to Werner Herzog expound on anything forever. We had a chance to go and listen to him speak after a recent documentary of his about volcanoes was released, and that was just the most fun hour. He's absolutely insane in probably the sanest way possible. Has very few limits when it comes to cinematic subject matter and the lengths to which he will go in order to capture a subject. I just think he's fascinating.
And it's funny because he's also an actor, so he's in many, many movies.
Yeah. I don't know what to say about him as an actor so much, but he's also, not only is he an actor as well as a documentary filmmaker, but probably even more famously, he's known for making narrative films.
Right.
Like Fitzcarraldo and Nosferatu and a bunch of other really, really amazingly crazy films.
So I best know him for playing the main villain in the first Jack Reacher movie. So there you go.
Oh my gosh. Okay, you say first.
Yes.
Now I'm a bit out of the loop when it comes to like current anything.
Yeah. It came out in I think
Jack Reacher films are there though?
There's only two. And this I think the first one came out in 2012, but he's great. He is great as the villain.
Yeah, he's kind of like a jack of all trades.
Yeah.
And crazy guy.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was anything by Werner Herzog. If you get a chance to see it, run for it.
Cool.
Another one. I don't know how much of a documentary this is versus a filmed interpretation of performance art.
Okay.
Heart of a Dog by Laurie Anderson is this kind of rumination on life, but mostly death, as well as the relationships that we have. But so she was married to Lou Reed, and after his passing, she did a series of performance art pieces where she really directly kind of encountered the theme of death. But she does so through the film as a result of the death of her dog, Lola Bell. So she talks a little bit about her relationship with Lola Bell and ideas of death and the way that she coped with that death. But I think she's also using that as a channel to discuss thinking about death in general and not just about a dog, even though it's called Heart of a Dog.
Right.
It's a really, really fascinating film. It's if anybody's into like meditation and is listening to this and looking for something to like meditate on, this film is actually good for that as well.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
It's fantastic. It includes her music, her visuals, a lot of which were developed either for the film or for her performance art pieces. And it's kind of fantastic.
That's cool.
So that's definitely one to hit. And what else? Oh, Los Angeles Plays Itself. This is a documentary about Los Angeles.
Okay.
But it's specifically about the filmed image and idea of Los Angeles. So it's got this guy, I forget his name, who's just speaking in this kind of monotone dialogue about Los Angeles, about films of Los Angeles, and talking about how LA has been imaged in film versus the idea of Los Angeles in film, how architecture is portrayed in particular ways. For example, he talks about modern architecture in Los Angeles as being usually a nest for villains, which I think is personally pretty interesting. It's very much a different take on LA, and he just does it with images of films in the background. shots of neighborhoods, shots of anything you can imagine, everything from, gosh, I can't remember the name of the hill where Dodger Stadium is now.
Oh, Chavez Ravine.
Yeah, so Chavez Ravine, and then there was a hill as well, like downtown Bunker Hill. Bunker Hill, that's what so like Chavez Ravine and Bunker Hill, how they're represented in films. Everything from that to like Blade Runner. And it's absolutely fantastic. I think you would eat this up. It's a really long film. And his voice is, as I say, very monotone. So it might be like a bit of a challenge to get through it. I saw it for the first time about a month ago in a theater in downtown Los Angeles as part of a film and arts festival. And if it hadn't been for that context, I might have gotten bored of it after a while. But it's really, really good. And it kind of peels back all of the cinematic layers of Los Angeles really carefully.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. And you, of course, love stuff like that. So it's right up your alley.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and I think anybody would. But it's interesting, some of the really kind of the minutiae, the small environments, like just strip malls. I think the movie kind of starts off early with a discussion of just the way off the beaten path kind of images of LA that sneak into films, not as like necessarily part of a plot or as like character to a plot, but just things that fly by as you're driving through Los Angeles.
Right.
Yeah, it's really, really fantastic and interesting.
That's a good one. That's a really good one.
Let's see. Oh, last one I'm going to mention. I was going to mention the Kotze trilogy, but I think I've mentioned that like 5 or 6 times.
Okay.
So anyway, go see the Kotze trilogy. It's fantastic. But the last one I want to end on is Paris is Burning.
Oh, okay. Well, what's this about?
Have you seen that yet?
I have not.
You haven't seen that? Okay. So Paris is Burning is this fantastically interesting time capsule of the New York gay ball scene where voguing and drag kind of were at their height during the mid to late 80s.
Okay.
And it's just a fantastically interesting film with a cast of real life characters that, yeah, it's one of those ones where you have like these periodic interviews with people, just snippets of like one person at the beginning and the middle of by about the middle of the film, I think you start to get hungry to see people again in these little snippets because you're just learning so much and they're so witty and so clever and, every once in a while appropriately so bitchy, and it's just fantastic. So and his insight for like where voguing came from and what a taste of gay club culture was in the 80s, the mid to late 80s.
Well, yeah, and of course most people know voguing simply because of Madonna, so this I'm sure it goes into that.
Well, actually, this predates Madonna.
Well, of course, but I mean that's when I think the mainstream probably heard about it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So no, that sounds interesting. I love all things 80s, so yeah, that's right up my alley.
Well, I think you'd love this. I think anyone would love it.
That's
it's just
awesome.
Really, really interesting. And the other thing is now, after the fact, completely unintentionally, it's a bit of a crime documentary as well, because now I'm loosely remembering, but I think that one of the persons that is featured in the interviews either died during the making of it or shortly after, and there's a mystery about what happened to that person.
Okay.
But it's not. I don't remember it being addressed in deep detail. It's certainly not the point of the documentary at all.
No.
But later you find out that one of the main drag queens that does a lot of the interviews. So after she passed away, they go into her apartment and they found a big trunk, like an old traveling suitcase with the mummified remains of, I think it was her ex from like a ways back.
Oh my God.
Yeah, kind of creepy as heck, right?
You could definitely do a sub documentary just on what happened from this.
Right, right, exactly. Like where have they gone? And oh my God.
That's great. Well, I mean, it's not great, but it's very interesting.
No, I know. It's morbid as all get out, but yeah, it's really interesting that kind of
came out of that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. Do you have any other ones, or is that the main list?
I could go on and on and on, but those are the ones I think I wanted to mention.
Okay, great. As always, thank you so much, Malin, and everyone needs to check these out because all of them sound really, really interesting.
Yeah. They're a lot of fun, and I can't wait to hear what everybody else has to recommend as well.
Oh yeah, this is going to be one I think it's going to require repeat listening just to go back and like, hey, I need to check this one out too. So
okay, awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much, Malin.
Thanks, Brian.
If you enjoyed this podcast and are an iTunes user, please do the show a favor and head on over to the official iTunes page for Damn Good Movie Memories. Be sure to leave a rating and a review. This will allow the show to appear higher in the algorithm and spread the joy of this podcast to the masses. If you are not an iTunes user, you can still listen and subscribe on Podbean at damngoodmoviememories.podbean.com. Be sure to like us on Facebook under our Damn Good Movie Memories page. You can also listen to a limited number of episodes on YouTube. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and be sure to tune in next week for an all-new episode of Damn Good Movie Memories.